Disclaimer: the following video is heavily inspired by CR Volcanic's videos on the monsters of Monster Hunter Frontier. Go watch his videos after this one. Also, all gameplay footage is in the description and belongs to its respective owners. Hello everyone, I'm back with the Frontier series. Continuing on with our Frontier journey, we have the Brute Wyverns and Carapaceons. I originally was only going to cover the Brute Wyverns, but because Frontier only had 3 new Brute Wyverns, I decided to cover the Carapaceons as well, to make the video longer. This, folks, is what we call padding the runtime. But either way, starting off, we have the Brute Wyverns. In the Monster Hunter series, Brute Wyverns mostly consist of dinosaur-like monsters, and Frontier doesn't stray too far from the norm. We do have a weird one, however, but he's really cool when you get to know him. First off, we have Abiorugu. Abiorugu is a Brute Wyvern introduced in Monster Hunter Frontier's Forward Free update. It is a powerful, ferocious, and nomadic Brute Wyvern, with the ability to produce fire and use his tail as a blade. Now, there already exist 3 Brute Wyverns that share Abiorugu's gimmicks: Deviljho, Anjanath, and Glavenus. However, Abiorugu acts a lot differently from them in battle. While Anjanath uses his fire in the form of flamethrower attacks, Abiorugu uses his fire in quick bursts, like explosions. While Glavenus uses his whole tail as a sword, Abiorugu only uses the tip of his tail. And while Deviljho is a solitary, Abiorugu will sometimes hunt with others of its kind. Now, if you've played Monster Hunter World before, specifically on PC, you might think he looks familiar, and that's because he was actually modded into the game a few years ago. But that is a mod, not an official appearance, so it doesn't count. Now, I like to point out that Wilds currently lacks any invader monsters, save for Arkveld, but he's a special case. And Wilds also has a pack system, where monsters can sometimes appear in packs. And Abiorugu is an invader monster that is known to form packs. Do you see where I'm getting at? He'd be perfect for Wilds. He wouldn't need many changes too. The only ones I can think of is maybe make the effects of some of his attacks less extreme, but that's it. Next, we have Gasurabazura. Yeah, this is the weird one I alluded to. Gasurabazura is a poisonous, desert-dwelling Brute Wyvern introduced in Monster Hunter Frontier's G8 update. They were originally semi-aquatic, but had to move onto land after the White Lake, the map they live in, dried up and became a desert. They get their poison from eating Akusubami, which are these small, scorpion-like monsters. In the regular state, they attack by spitting out poison clouds, producing poisonous bubbles that he pops, and a few physical attacks, mostly tail swipes. However, when enraged, his hands and tail swell up and the fins on his cheeks and back flare up. In this state, he stops using poison and attacks by using only physical attacks. And when he gets out of his rage state, he does have a special attack where he creates a massive mound of sand and does a body slam from the top of it. He can also create quicksand traps that leave you stuck in place. Overall, from what I've seen, I like his design, but his fight could use some work, especially because I heard he has an attack that instantly stuns you regardless of your stun resistance. If he ever comes back, I hope that stays in Frontier, because that sounds awful. Also, he has arguably the worst render in the entire series. Like, what were they thinking? What did they do to deserve this? Finally, we have Giaorugu. We started with Abiorugu and now finish with his cousin. Giaorugu is a Brute Wyvern which inhabits the Polar Sea. He was introduced in the G2 update and has a few abilities that Abiorugu does not. Namely, he can make his blood extremely cold. He primarily uses it by burying his tail in the ground and freezing the seawater under the ice into a much longer blade, which he then uses to extend his already deadly tail attacks. Instead of fire bursts, he has ice blasts, and for some reason, he has Uragan's rolling attack and chin slams. Unlike Abiorugu, he is nomadic, only inhabiting the Polar Sea, and he doesn't hunt in packs either. From what I've seen, he seems like a fun fight. Most of what I said about Abiorugu applies to him, though I don't personally see him coming to Wilds, since he needs salt water to freeze his tail, and Wilds doesn't have any maps near the sea. And those were the Brute Wyverns of Frontier. Overall, I like their designs, and any of their more extreme attacks could be toned down in the main series if they were brought back. Next up, we have the Carapaceons. Now, in the main Monster Hunter series, the Carapaceon class is reserved for crab-like monsters. However, in Frontier, most of the Carapaceons aren't crabs or even crustaceans, but instead, scorpions. Remember the Kusubami way back in Gasurabazura section? Yeah, those are in the same classification as Daimyo Hermitor and Shogun Senator. Now, Frontier did introduce a new crab Carapaceon, but most of them are scorpions, which is really cool. First, we have Akura Vashimu, our first scorpion monster, and immediately, he's not what one might expect. Akura Vashimu, introduced in Frontier's Season 3.0 update, is a giant black scorpion with purple crystals on its claws, head, and tail. Instead of being venomous, like a real scorpion, Akura Vashimu attacks by spraying from his tail a liquid that crystallizes once it hits you. This inflicts the Crystal Blight status, which is arguably the most unfair status in the series. When you're inflicted with it, it reduces your stamina to a minimum, slows you down, and after a while, the crystals explode, dealing damage. If they brought him back, I feel like they have to heavily revamp Crystal Blight. Maybe get rid of the stamina drain mechanic, since that can be really annoying. Additionally, they have a very intricate tail cut, where you must first break the crystals on its head and claws, then break his horn and the claws, and then wait until his blood is a specific color. Yeah, it's that hard. This, however, is something I wish they don't remove, since it adds depth to the fight. Up next, we have Akura Jebia. A relative of Akura Vashimu, Akura Jebia was introduced in Frontier's Season 3.5 update. While Vashimu primarily inhabits deserts, Jebia lives in swamps. He has all the same mechanics that Vashimu has, but with an additional one. It being, cutting his tail does not disable his ability to cause Crystal Blight. When you cut off his tail, a crystalline growth will grow from the stump before exploding. Much of what I said about Vashimu applies to Jebia, although if they bring him back, he should stay only on swamps, as he can also appear in deserts in Frontier, despite the fact that Vashimu lives in them. The same goes for Vashimu actually, since he also goes to the swamp. And lastly, we have Taikun Zamuza, the only crab-like Carapaceon that Frontier introduced, and it's a weird one. Taikun Zamuza, introduced in the Forward Free update, is a large, hulking Carapaceon with a massive fist-like right claw and a blade-like left claw. Taikun lives in the caves of the scenic Tide Island, and despite being an early game monster, he has 3 phases, with one of them being a secret one. In his first phase, he's covered in mud, rocks, and fungi, and you must destroy his armor. Destroying it causes small clumps of the fungi to fall, which release spores to obscure your vision. After breaking some of his armor, he goes into phase 2, where he breaks the floor, causing you and him to fall deeper into the cave. In this phase, he is faster and attacks more often, but this isn't the end. If you get all the part breaks, which is kind of hard to do, he goes into phase 3, where he breaks the floor again and destroys his orange shell in the fall, revealing his true form. A pale crab with a drill-shaped right claw, and with electrical organs in his back. In this phase, he is much faster and can electrocute his opponents. If they brought him back, I wonder how they would do this fight, due to the fact that it has phases despite being an early game fight, and those phases are separated by cutscenes. I also would like them to explain how his drill-like claw fits inside of the fist-like shell. And those are all the Carapaceons of Frontier. Overall, they're all great, Crystal Blight notwithstanding. If they do bring the scorpions back, I wonder if they would be reclassified as Temnocerans, or the spider monsters, as scorpions and spiders are arachnids. Either way, that's all for today. Our next episode will be on the Fanged Beasts, as I'm leaving the other dragons for last. See you folks then!